Today we're going to take a look at the best bowlers in the 2000s, as this period of PBA history was extremely competitive with many legends in their prime dominating the field. But what also makes this time period intriguing is there were a host of young bowlers starting to break through and challenge the legends of the game that had dominated bowling throughout most of the 90s. So we're going to take a look at the best bowlers between the period of 2000 to 2009, and for a player to be included in this list, we're going to be considering their performance during this time period only, and not what they have done throughout their career either before or after the 2000s. So for example, Jason Belmonte does not make this list, as he did not win his first title until 2009, and it wasn't until the 2010s that he started to win his titles. Now, as mentioned, there were an incredible amount of talented PBA pros during the 2000s, so picking the best players of this decade won't be straightforward, and as always with lists like these, there were always going to be some fantastic players that get left off. Without further ado, let's begin. Number 1. Tommy Jones. Jones won his first title in 2004 at the Japan Cup, and then won his second in the same year at the Denver Open. He then won 4 titles in the following year in 2005, including back-to-back wins at the Japan Cup. He then won 3 titles in 2006, which included his first major at the US Open. Although 2007 was a slightly quieter year, it still included another major title at the Tournament of Champions. The following year he won 2 titles in 2008, but 12 titles in just 5 years is an incredible feat, and it easily places Jones as one of the best bowlers of the 2000s. Number 2. Patrick Allen. Patrick Allen made this list largely because he won all of his 13 titles in the 2000s. His first win came in 2001 at the Greater Detroit Classic, and his first major and 5th title was at the 2005 World Championship. Allen continued to establish himself as a top-tier player by winning 3 titles in 2007 and 3 titles in 2009. His first win in 2009 was at the National Bowling Stadium Championship, where he beat Walter Ray Williams Jr. This match included a horrible break from Walter Ray, who had a chance to win the title in the 10th frame. I recently did a video where I analysed this entire final match and looked at whether this bad break from Walter Ray was actually a bad break, or whether it was just simply a bad shot. And if you haven't done so already, you can watch this video by clicking the link above. Patrick Allen really did have a fantastic decade, and winning 13 PBA titles in just 9 years is certainly an excellent feat. And on top of this, Allen was always fantastic fun to watch on TV. Number 3. Norm Duke. Now we start to get on to some absolute legends of the game that really did dominate the 2000s. Duke entered the year 2000 with 17 titles to his name, and he kept this trend of winning going with 3 wins in the year 2000, including a PBA National Championship title. He kept winning titles year after year and won another 3 majors for titles 28, 29 and 30. All in all, he won 16 titles in the 2000s. Norm is an obvious inclusion on this list, and I don't even need to make a case for him. His achievements simply speak for themselves. Number 4. Parker Bohn III. Parker Bohn III was simply dominant, particularly in the early 2000s. At the end of the 90s, he went on a tear. He won 4 titles in 1998 and then 5 titles in 1999. He managed to keep this hot streak going with 2 wins in 2000 and then another 5 wins in the 2001-2002 season, which included a Masters title. He did start to slow down and would only win another 3 titles for the rest of this decade. However, he was still a force to be reckoned with during the 2000s, especially during the early period, and would easily be considered the best left-hander during this decade, and certainly one of the best left-handers of all time. Number 5. Pete Weber. Now on to a man who needs little introduction, Pete Weber. By the end of the 90s, Pete had already established himself as one of the greats, winning 24 PBA titles. However, he was having a number of struggles in his personal life, mainly battling alcohol addiction. In the 2000 season, he was still serving a suspension from the tour due to an incident at a Pro-Am in '99 that was related to Weber's drinking problem. However, in the year 2000, the PBA was undergoing pretty big changes, as the tour was sold to 3 former Microsoft executives. They saw potential in Webber to market the PBA to a new audience, and by 2001, Webber was back on our screens and winning more titles. He once again started to dominate during the early 2000s and picked up a major win at the 2004 US Open. But by 2006 to 2007, Webber started to have a number of struggles on TV, and he had a title drought that lasted 3 years. He would not win again in the 2000s, as his next win came at the end of the 2009 to 2010 season in 2010 at the Marathon Open. But despite these struggles towards the end of the decade, Pete had certainly done more than enough to establish himself as one of the greats throughout the 2000s. Number 6. Chris Barnes. Barnes was still relatively new to the tour, having won his first 2 titles in 1999. He would win his third in 2001, but would have to wait another 4 years to win his first major at the 2005 US Open. We all know what an incredible talent Barnes was, and he was one of the best bowlers of the 2000s without a doubt. His game had everything. The only thing that let him down was a combination of his regular TV struggles, but also quite a lot of bad luck too. However, he still managed to win 10 titles in this decade alone, and although he probably should have won more during this period, he was still up there with the best, and able to compete with the legends such as Webber, Duke and Walter Ray. And speaking of Walter Ray, he is our final entry on this list. Walter Ray Williams Jr. is considered to be the greatest of all time by many, although many bowlers do place him just behind the great Earl Anthony. Like Webber and Norm Duke, Walter had won most of his titles in the 80s and 90s, as he entered the year 2000 with 30 titles. Being 40 years of age at the time, many might have expected him to start to slow down, but that was simply not the case. He won title after title and kept winning multiple titles each year. Between 2000 and 2009, he not only won 16 PBA titles, but these included 4 majors too. He was simply the man to beat, and even though he was getting older, he just kept finding ways to get the job done. There's no doubt in my mind that Walter was the best player of this decade. You could certainly make a case for Norm Duke too, as he also won 16 titles in the 2000s, but ultimately I think Walter just had the edge, especially when you consider he was 4 years older than Norm, and as I mentioned earlier, you would have really expected Walter to slow down due to his age by that point. So that brings us to an end of today's video. I hope that you agree with my list of the best players between the years 2000 and 2009, but perhaps you do feel that I've missed some players out and there's some PBA pros that you think should have made this list. If that is the case, let me know in the comment section below which player you would have included on this list. As always, I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you, bowling fans, and see you all next time.